your theme is My Family, My Mission. And I've been asked to speak on financial wellness, physical well-being, in essence, preparing for retirement. And I've done a little PowerPoint. Feel free to stop me in the middle of it. We can have questions at the end. We can have questions in the middle. If you are burning, feel free to stop me. If I can't answer, I'll tell you I can't answer. If I can answer, I'll answer. Is that okay, Sister Pearl?
Yes.
Okay, I know. Don't worry. I'll call names from time to time. Don't be alarmed. So I know you've been looking at the passage in Luke in terms of the woman who lost the coin and searched for it. But tonight I want us to focus on this passage in terms of to give you a kind of context around what I'm going to speak about. And the passage is Ecclesiastes 3. There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the sun. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet, no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I know that there's nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it and nothing taken from it. God does it so that people will fear him. Brothers and sisters, when we are talking about retirement, go back to this verse. There's a time for everything. And because there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the sun, we have to remember that there's a season for retirement. Whether we like it or not, whether we don't want to do it, whether it is something far, whether it's something near or we are already there. It is something. Want to show you a little bit of statistics to start. I want us to assume that we will live longer than we think. Because when we look at the data, there are more people in the Caribbean region. And since we are Caribbean prayer and fasting, and I know we are all across, if I remember hearing correctly, in the UK and in Canada and in a lot of places, wherever there's a Caribbean person, the person could be on this Zoom. And so when I looked at it, it said that more people are 60 and over, and 11% of the population is over 60 years, according to it. So we are aging population. It also spoke to the fact that birth rates are down and death rates are down as well. And so people are living longer. And a lot of our persons are dependent, whether our children. For every 100 persons that work, you have call it 14 people who are elderly that depend on them, and 33 children that depend on them as well. And so we are aging population. So one of the things in the data, it says that governments have to prepare themselves to face future pressures to support long-term care, to prevent social exclusion when persons are in older age. So the question I want us to ask ourselves is, as church, how do we help our aging members who will increase the demand for support services to help them to carry out their daily lives? And I've been listening very keenly to the sessions that come on at 5 in the morning. And up to this morning, I heard somebody say, I think it's Reverend Ross, Reverend Nugent. She said, charity begins at home. So my family, my mission, God expects us to take care of our family. You know, and I remember reading the Bible and seeing where Jesus, when he was dying, said, John, take care of my mother. Mother, this is your son. Son, this is your mother. So God expects us to put things in place so that our families can manage when we are in retirement, or even when we have gone through heaven's door. Okay? So that's where we want to start. So we need to ask ourselves the question, how are we helping ourselves? How will we prepare for retirement? One of the first things we need to do to prepare for retirement is, as I said, assume that you're going to live longer than you think. Prepare for long-term living. There are some of us will live up to 30 years beyond retirement, and some of us even further. I just lost a neighbor, and she was 100 years old. Think about that. She retired at around 60. So for 40 years, she was around. And she was reading her papers. She was calculating maths up to a couple months before she died. So we could live longer. But I don't want us to worry about it. I want us to prepare for it. Because as Isaiah 46 says, God who carried us from the womb says, even to God who was there before we were born, who carried us from the womb, says, even to your old age, I am he. To the gray hairs, I will carry you. I have made, I will bear, I will carry, I will save. So the Lord will carry us, brothers and sisters. So how do we prepare? We have a very oral culture in the Caribbean, and particularly maybe because we come out of a slavery tradition, we sometimes are thinking in terms of preparing for retirement is short term. So we say, we soon dead. So we don't need to prepare physically, we don't need to prepare emotionally, we don't need to prepare financially or medically for retirement. And sometimes it's because we get so caught up in our daily routine, we don't set any expectations, we stress about it, we ignore pain, we lack sleep, we don't exercise, we overwork, we don't test for our numbers or for cancer, we don't screen, we don't discipline ourselves because we say it's retirement, we're soon dead. So why do I need to do all of this, I want to go to heaven and rest. I'm tired of staying down here. We sing songs like that. And so we say we're going to heaven. Of course, we're going to heaven if we know the Lord Jesus. But if we don't prepare for the retirement, we won't be able to prepare. So hear what I don't want us to stress. So hear what I tell you. Timing matters. So we should start from our first paycheck. I heard Brother Brown say, I am closer to that. But if you don't start from your first paycheck, you have to start from, you need to start now. It is better to start now, and it's better late than never. So when you're planning for retirement, start now. So ask yourself, am I ready physically? Am I ready for am I ready in terms of my mind? Am I ready in terms of my body? Am I ready in terms of my spirit when it comes to aging? Am I ready in terms of if you have a spouse? Is your spouse more than your lover? Is this person your friend? Because when you retire, this is the person, if you have a spouse, you'll be looking up in their face every day, every minute of the day. Do you exercise your mind? Do you do puzzles? Do you exercise your spirit? Do you pray? Do you meditate? After a long day, do you meditate and bring yourself down? What about your brain? Do you eat? Do you exercise your brain? What about your body? Do you go walking? Do you go swimming? What do you do? Do you engage in self-care? Do you have daily social activities? Do you have computer skills to manage this whole new world? We're in a world now where a lot of us will have to have computer skills. Are we ready physically? The other question is, are we ready emotionally? What do I mean? What do I mean by ready emotionally? Do we, when are your emotions where they need to be? Is there when you are retired, are you ready for for less brain activity compared to when you are working? Because sometimes when you're at work, you're managing 3-4 branches and everything else. And now when you're not working and you're retired, you're just managing your home. Are you ready for loneliness? Do you only have friends at work? Do you have a life outside of the job? Are you ready for when your friends may pass away? What about an emptiness? Your children are far away or busy with their own lives. What about reduction of status? So you were a reverend this, or you were a deacon this, and then now you're retired, some doors close on you because that status, so some of the doors that would open no longer open. If you were in a job that you had clients or you had files, you have to give up the files. Let's say you are a lawyer. You have to give up the files. You have to give up the files, which equal to giving up relationships. And you're unable to master the mental changes. Are you unable to master the mental changes around you? Right? What about sickness? What about sickness and disease? Are you able to navigate brain fog, memory loss, mood changes, brothers and sisters, mood swings, poor concentration, fatigue? As women go through menopause, and sometimes we don't really talk about these things in church. So you can excommunicate me afterwards. So you might have irregular periods, hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, hormone shifts that cause sleep disturbances, mood swings, brain fog, and weight gain. And the men, and this could start even earlier than the women, have decreased sex drive, erectile dysfunction where they're unable to have an erection, fatigue, reduced muscle mass, abdominal weight gain, mood swings, and poor concentration. Are you ready for that? Because those are some of the things that happen in retirement. What about financially? Who do you trust with your money to manage it properly? Do you pay rent or mortgage? How will that be financed? Where do you live? How will the bills be paid? Do you have a pension or gratuity to get when you retire? Do you know how much you need to live on based on your current expenses? What are your other streams of income? What is that in your hand, as God asked Moses? And how can you start from now to seed your future? And the final set of questions. Are you ready medically to retire? Do you know your numbers, your body mass index, how much, are you, in other words, are you overweight? Are you obese? Are you in the normal range? Your A1C, so your diabetes, what are your sugar numbers? Is it out of whack? And brothers and sisters are not condemning anybody. I'm just asking you. I remember once I went to the doctor and the doctor said, your numbers are high. When we tested you, your numbers are 13 and it should be 6. No, 13 and 6, brothers and sisters, is very far. 13 is not good. I could have just dropped down. I didn't know our numbers were so high. What about your blood pressure, cholesterol? Are you monitoring and evaluating where you are? Do you have personal health care professionals? Do you have a dentist? Because do you know that your dental health is connected to your heart? So if you don't take care of your dental health, it can affect your heart. Who does your blood work for you? Who are your doctors when you retire? Will there be home visits? No, home visits are more expensive most times than office visits. So which one you're going to do? And if can you make it out? Medicine, are you going to go to the pharmacy or are you going to have it delivered? Who is going to make sure that you get the checkups that you need to get? You're checking out, you're doing your screenings. Who is going to call you daily to ensure you're okay? Who is going to take care of you? These are some of the decisions that we have to ask and ask ourselves. Are we going to do a nursing home, a hospice, or are we going to have a living nurse? These are some of the decisions we're going to have to think about. I know we don't like to think about them, but let's see how we can manage. How are we going to finance your health care? Health care is very expensive. So do you have medical insurance that can cover your current health conditions? Have you taken out plans when you are young, like a critical care insurance with various conditions, inclusive of cancer? I remember when years ago I was in my 20s. Clearly, I'm not in my 20s now. But when I was in my 20s, I remember an insurance agent that I knew said to me, you need to take out a cancer plan. And I'm like, I don't know why you're asking me that. It didn't seem relevant at the time because I was 20 and as far as I knew, nobody in my family had cancer. Sometimes we say, oh, it's just money they want for the insurance. I'm not taking out any. Do you have an NHF card or a health card, so that you can get your medicines, so that you can do some tests with discounts, Do you know where the nearest public health clinic or the nearest hospital is to you? So that if something happens, you can say, carry me up to there, carry me up to UE, carry me to KPH, carry me to so and so. Where are you? There's a clinic in Gordon Town. I can see the doctor there. The doctor comes there on a Tuesday and Thursday, so I can see the doctor. Those are kind of some of the things that you need to find out if you're already medically. So let's go through them one by one and see how we can prepare. Physical preparation. This is an advice that I got from a lady who retired, and she said to me, Lois, before you retire, stop buying work clothes at least 3 to 4 years before retirement. Because what you're going to do with them after you retire, buy all these lovely suits. You might wear 1 or 2 now and then, but what you're going to do with them. So stop buying work clothes 3 to 4 years before retirement. Maybe if your work clothes is in such a good thing, you can decide you can donate them. Some of them you could perhaps do secondhand sales, a jumbo sale or sell them on some sites, because some of them are in such good order. Clearly, you're not going to sell the tear-up clothes. But what about, stop buying work clothes. Rekindle the relationship with your spouse. As I asked earlier, is this person more than your lover? Sometimes this person needs to be your friend first. So plan what you're going to do with your friend. Where, are you going to travel? Are you going to just travel around the island or travel around the area where you live? Are you going to just go out for ice cream every now and again? What are you going to do? Do some planning together. Do things together. Have a caregiver. One of the things you need to do is to have a caregiver that you can trust, to help you navigate in the changing scenes of life. Life changes, and you know, I was listening to a program this evening, and the lady said on the program, after me not understand, when me go to the doctor, me not understand. Who do you have to go with you so to help you to understand if you don't understand fully? You know, do you need to have that kind of caregiver to help you navigate? Because sometimes I remember going to the doctor and hearing that I was ill. And it was a good thing that my husband came with me, because after the doctor said what he said, I did not hear anything else. My ears shut down, my ears closed down. I just heard, you are very ill. And that shut me down. So you need to have somebody with you to help you navigate those things. Another thing you need to do physically, you need to write down your wishes. Brothers and sisters, we don't write. Remember, I tell you that we are oral culture, so we like to talk. No problem talking, but we need to write down our wishes and make the right persons know. We can have what is called a living will, and write down who will manage your arrangements if you're unable to do it yourself. You know, if you have dementia, when somebody has dementia, for example, especially in the beginning, you don't know that you're that sick, you know. You don't realize you're losing your memory. You don't realize you're saying the same things over and over. And after a while, you'd forget how to sign your own name. You don't know who you are. I remember when my dad had dementia. He looked at a picture on the wall and he said, those dead people are looking at me. And that hurt me so much. You know, when you are going through, you don't know, you don't know what, we don't know what will happen to us in retirement. We don't know what. So do we have a living will? You know, what will happen when you die? You know, you could get you could have a stroke and you're unable to speak. You know, write it down. Who will say what? What you want on your program? What's your favorite hymn? What's your favorite scripture passage? Who you want to say a word? I remember when my mother was sick, my mother said somebody came to visit her in the hospital and she said, when I pass, I would say, no, you're not passing. And she said, when I pass, Mr. So-and-so, say a word. I want you to say a word. I want you to sing. And so she was telling exactly what she wanted. We never want to believe that she was dying, but she knew. What will happen to your body? Do you want to be buried or cremated? Some people have some really violent views about that, you know. Some people say, oh, me know nobody burn my body. Write it down so that people know. Where do you want to be buried? Some people don't want to be buried in these big places, these big cemeteries. They want a churchyard. Some people want to be buried in the country plot at home, you know. Some people want to be thrown, their ashes to be thrown out at sea. What do you want? Put it down, write it down, and make sure the right people know. And then, of course, you need to have your will. And the lawyers on this call can tell you, you know, last will and testament. You know, who gets what and what portion. Suppose you have multiple families. You have blended families or you have multiple families. What is the portion for each child? The child of the first marriage, the child of the second marriage, you know, the stepchild, the ones who are vulnerable and the ones who are less so. You know, you know your family. So don't let persons take advantage of those who are vulnerable and say, okay, you know, you can't get it because you're that child. You can't get what they say you are to get. Or the ones who are in local say, okay, we were here taking care, so we must get everything, and you in foreign, no, you're not getting anything. Are you gifting your property or things to the churches? Are you establishing a trust? Are you giving scholarships to or your friends of a hospital or community? Those are some of the ways you can physically prepare. Check your records, brothers and sisters. As I indicated, I've been working in HR for 31 years. Today, actually, is 31 years since I've been working in HR. And one of the things that we find is that for the employment records, nobody indicates to say, this is my next of kin, and this is the person who manages my estate. So sometimes your next of kin passes on. So when I started working, excuse me, my next of kin were my parents. I wasn't married. I didn't have any children. No, my next of kin has changed, you know. So, the address, and, you have to make sure the address and the numbers are current. Are you eligible for pension or gratuity benefits? Do you have tenure? Do not assume that you are. Oh, yes, man, I've been working at the primary school. From me eye there, me knee, and me down there, and me working in the kitchen. Do you actually have a letter to say that you are employed by the government and that you have a pension to get? Are you a permanent worker, or are you a part-time worker? Those are things you need to know. Don't just assume. Check all the places that have your information. Make sure it has the right, make sure the documentation is right, that, you have the correct spelling. Everybody know you as Sonia. And so all the checks come in Sonia Brown. But when you check it out, your name is not Sonia Brown. Your name is Pearl Sonia Brown. And so so when it is time now for retirement, there's a mix up with the name, and the person who knew you as a child to give testimony has died, and so all of those things can't happen. Another part of your physical preparation, create an exercise routine. Whether you swim, or you do water aerobics, or you walk, or you do Tai Chi, or whatever you do, make sure you exercise at minimum 30 minutes a day. I was just listening to something today, and they were saying that's part of how you fight off disease, by doing a minimum of 30 minutes per day. Practice self-care, protect your sleep, brothers and sisters. And, I notice, I'm not going to drop any word for Pastor Nugent tonight, but I notice we have moved from midnight to 7 p.m. And I'm sure Brother Sodi appreciates that, so that he can sleep. Right, Brother Sodi? Bathing, stretching, dental hygiene, heart, taking care of your heart. What is your heart? What's happening inside? Are there plaques? Do you have acid reflux? Are you eating your pawpaw and drinking your coconut water? Are you flushing your system, drinking your beetroot and your carrots and your turmeric and all of that kind of self-care inside? You need to have one meaningful conversation per day. Find somebody. Get a good laugh. Laughter is good medicine. You know what the Bible says? Laughter is good medicine. Laugh. Have a meaningful conversation with somebody today. Plan your meals to properly eat. The older you get, sometimes you can't bother because you're tired. You're tired of eat. I remember the same neighbor I was telling you about said to me, me don't want to eat. And I said, but boy, she's been eating for almost 100 years. That's no wonder the lady tired. But, you still need to eat. And drinking, because sometimes you don't realize how dehydrated you get. Right now, it's very hot. You need to be making sure that you are drinking enough water and not just a little soap. Because sometimes the older you get, you say, no, me can't bother drink water again. Drink your water, brothers and sisters. Reduce your sugar. Reduce your salt. What are your social activities? You need something to keep you occupied in the day. Maybe at your church, you can have, maybe at Spring Garden Church, they can have a mature members club. They can, where they meet up with their friends, they do certain things together. They make things together. They go on trips together. They might go to the beach. They might do swimming together. They might crochet together. They might go on events, meet up with friends. I remember this lady that I knew many years ago. She was like about 82 at the time. And they were having some festival in Montego Bay. And she said to me, Law, you won't see me, because I'm going from Thursday. I have brought my chair. I booked my hotel room. I am going to be out at that event every night until and it ends on Sunday, but I won't be coming back until Tuesday because I'm going to have a good time with my friends. Do stuff to keep your minds occupied. Sometimes fear prevents us to be computer literate. Yes, you don't understand, but let somebody show you. Let somebody show you some basic things so that you can even set up grocery shopping. Maybe you can't go out to do your groceries, but you could go on a website and say, okay, I want 2 tin of corned beef, 1 tray of egg, etc., and have it done and paid and delivered. Put your documents in order. So gather all your relevant documents like your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, all of your passport, your NIS card, your TRN, your NHC number. Put all of them in a waterproof bag so that they can be accessed. One of the things when I spoke to them at Administrator General in preparation for this, they said, ensure that your birth certificate has the name of your father. Because if there is a need for a court action or a court order, you're going to need that as proof to say that this is your father. And so make sure that the birth certificate. So they said, whether you volunteer, gentlemen, volunteer to put your name on it if it is not there. You know, ladies, do what you need to do to get the name on the birth certificate. Write down all of your properties. Some of you have properties and you have property there, but your family don't even know where the property is. So something happens to you and it's all in your head and you have lost your memory. The family loses that land, that property. So write down where all the properties are, where they are, in whose name it is, and have a folder with the titles and all the other supporting documents. Am I still being heard?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just making sure that you're not sleeping. Yeah,
Wonderful
We're not
information. Keep going. Keep going.
very informative.
Okay. Good. Glad you're hearing. I want everybody, brothers and sisters, to create a retirement purpose plan because you have to design a retirement structured schedule. You have to create a purpose to get up out of bed. Or you're not going to want to come out of bed. You know, there's a cartoon. I don't know if you know the cartoon Pinky and the Brain.
Oh, yes.
And Pinky says to Brain, what will we do tonight, Brain? And Brain says, same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world. Brain was smart. Brain had a plan every day to escape. escape to take over the world, to come out of the cage. We must, if a cartoon can come up with that, what about us, brothers and sisters? We need to create a purpose to get up in the mornings because God has created all of us with a purpose. And so in this season of our lives, we are going to be like help me read Psalm 1:3. Somebody just open your mic and read this verse for me.
And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper.
And whatsoever he doeth. Thank you, sis. Whoa, whatever you do shall prosper. So we have to be doing what we are supposed to do in the season of our lives. I remember the scripture very well that says, in the season when kings went to war, King David was idle. He should have gone to war, but he was there busy in his bedroom, having a good time lying down. And by lying down, he got himself in trouble when he came out and saw Bathsheba bathing. Because he was supposed to be at war, him busy, not doing anything, being idle, and therefore commit murder and commit adultery. Don't let that be us. Let us have a purpose and do our purpose that we are called to do. How will we spend our retirement? We have to retire into something. So we have to create that purpose plan. How do we prepare emotionally? Remember with some of the questions I asked you. We have to, again, after we figure out the divine plan, what we're going to be doing. Are we volunteering at a soup kitchen or a halfway house? You know, they have halfway house. There are places that you can go and you can get a shower, you can get a meal, you can get a bed for a short time. You know, they might need help to help somebody to bathe somebody, to comb somebody here, do something like that. Is that a question? Is that a question? I hear somebody talking. Is that a question? No. Okay. All right. Start a charity. Write your memories in a book. Write about your 40-day fast. How do you do your 40-day fast? I see, is that a hand? Or somebody just testing it out? Is that a hand? Okay. All right. Do crossword puzzles. Do farming. Do a trade. Visit people. There are people who you might be stronger in the retirement, but somebody is not strong and can't come out. Visit. Make calls to friends and family. Learn a skill. Learn a language. You can learn a language on your phone or on the computer now. You can do coaching or mentoring. You can work with the other generations. You can travel. So you have to be deliberate in creating meaning, brothers and sisters. You have to combat loneliness. How you combat loneliness? Find some young people at church that need mentoring, that need somebody to tell them about what it was in their day and how they do it, and to learn from them. And other communities, have some selected persons checking on you and carrying you places. Coach and consult people to keep you. Consult with people so you're engaged. Consult with the younger ones and say, okay, yes, man, okay. I can't do all the cases I used to do, but I can do this one case with you. Create a life and relationships outside of your job. So if you only play dominoes with the men at work, when you retire and have nobody to play dominoes, set up a domino team at church and you and them play domino. Don't hold on to status and say, oh, I am the most reverend that. I am Mrs. So-and-so and so-and-so. And then when the status change, no, you can't function and you don't know how to manage. No, that status is temporary. All right. When you remember, we talked about menopause and andropause. With that, you might, you need to check out, talk to a specialist, see where you can get treated, talk to others. How did they cope? Do you need, you're having brain fog? I remember when I had, brothers and sisters, I had breast cancer. And so when I had breast cancer, I had brain fog and I had memory loss. And I had to drink, I drank soursop leaf tea, and I drank all kind of things just to help me to come out of the brain fog, to sleep, to rest. You have mood swings and fatigue. You might have to get hormone replacement, medicines. You might have to be thinking, meditating, and you meditate on how the goodness of God, that you are here and that you are still alive, so it clearly have purpose for you. You might listen to the rain. You might write some poetry. You might have to, there's something called dance therapy. So you could dance, you could paint, you could draw, you could get counseling. So whatever emotional you need, emotional preparation you need to do to help you to go through, go take it. God has provided us with wisdom. So we're not going to do things that are not of him. But God gives you that kind of wisdom, and wisdom is calling us to come and to do that. And to do that. Financial preparation. All right. So this is one of the bigger ones. And so I want, you might find yourself looking at this one. Where possible, pay off your mortgage before retirement. You don't want to be paying a mortgage in retirement when you have less income than when you were working. You need to probably set up auto pay for your bills so you don't rely on memory alone. Because you might say, oh yes, me did pay the water bill. I think me did pay the water bill now. Me not sure me did pay the water bill. But if you set up auto pay and you have, once the money is in the account, it comes out automatically. So you don't have to remember on your memory alone, because you might not even remember. Put trustworthy persons on your account, like your children. But make sure they're trustworthy, and make sure they don't turn on you now and then just clean out your account and take out all of your money. But if you don't have anybody on your account, if you die, all of that money and all of those properties and everything goes straight back to the government. So you need to have trustworthy people on your things because you know what you want to do with your money. Calculate your pensions or your gratuity so you are not surprised when some people think that when they are doing their pension, when they're getting their pension, they're getting all of that money. You only sometimes get a portion of the pay that you carry home on a month time. So you need to know that. You need to develop other streams of income. What can you do? Are you good at carpentry? Are you good at planting coffee? Are you good at planting peas? Can you write a book and that can earn money for you while you're sleeping? What are the streams of income that you do that can help you earn some money so that it can help to finance your future? Consult your financial advisor. What investment and insurance plan are suitable for you based on your stage, based on your generation? Start thinking like an owner, not a worker. God give us as stewards. We are stewards. So, but God wants us not to just trade our time for money. He wants us to create these streams of income, these assets, these systems, so that they can work for us. One of the tips that I've found helpful is to track every expense that you have for 90 days. Track what you actually spend, not what you budget, because it will help you it will prevent you from underestimating what you spend and from overestimating what you need to cut. Because you might need to cut, you might say, I don't need to pay for cable. I can just do local TV. And test drive your retirement income for 6 months. So practice living on it. So if my income is 10, if I used to earn $100, but now when I retire, I'm going to get 80, practice living on 80 for 6 months. And that you see how much you need to live on. Are you living above your means? Maybe we are. Some of us are living above our means. How do we correct that? No. I developed an app just to show you that you could develop an app. You can have a retirement income numbers tracker. You can track your numbers. How old am I? What age am I going to retire? What is my monthly contribution? What is my expected annual return? How much I'm going to get for NIS? So look at this now. If you look in the picture, it tells you that, okay, you're not ready for retirement because you only have 20%, 27% of what you need to retire. So you only will have $31,000 and you need 88,000 and you need 88 more plus that 31. So if you see that now, you're going to say, but how am I going to get this 88? What do I need to do? What do I need to do with it? Right? So contribute, so financial preparation continued. Contribute to the National Insurance Scheme, NIS, the National Housing Trust, so that later you can claim. Because those of us in Jamaica, at the NIS, you can claim it at age 65 for men and women. You can claim it before 4 months, before 65, if you have stopped working. But you must have a minimum of 520 weeks of contribution. But the amount you get depends on your contribution. NHT, 65 too. You can get, when you retire, you get a special contribution refund. But you don't have to wait until you retire to get refund. You can get refunded on a 7-year cycle. They are now at 2019. So you can collect that. Get a passport, brothers and sisters, just in case you no longer have a driver's license and you have to do business and they say you need 2 government IDs. So 2 government IDs, you can have your electoral office ID and your passport, just in case you are at the age when you retire, excuse me, that you no longer can drive. Give me 1 second. Thank you. If you have worked overseas, let's say you work in the UK or you work in the US, and and you are eligible to get some kind of pension, you need to read carefully what the conditions are, because for some of them, they will send it to you wherever you are. But for some of them, you have to travel to receive it if you are out of the country. And so you have to know whether you can travel. So let's say you're supposed to get 200 US per month. But they say in order for you to get it, you have to travel once a year. Then you have to see whether or not you can travel. You might reach a point where you can't travel. And that was the money that you were using to finance something. What you're going to do to replace that? Do you have any pension investment accounts? Make sure that it have beneficiaries on the investment part. You find that sometimes the insurance part has the beneficiary, but the investment part don't have the beneficiary. So make sure that you have these pension investment accounts that you need to retire. Based on what I'm hearing on the news, people are doing that more and more. Invest in owning property, but do it properly. Because we have a very oral culture. We buy land with a piece of book leaf and somebody sign it, but we don't have an official title. What the Administrator General says is that that's a problem, because those who come behind cannot prove ownership with just the book leaf and the signature. They cannot get a loan because they don't have the title, and somebody else can purchase that land. And all you invest in that land disappears. You plant your crop on it and it gone. You build your house on it and then somebody else buy it and it gone. So what they're suggesting that you do is you go to the National Land Agency. There's a division there called the Land Administration and Management Program Division. It's LAMP. I'm sure most of you here heard of LAMP. It is, so you can go in, and especially the person who has done the transaction can go in and regularize that kind of situation. Write down all the properties where they are, in whose name, have a folder with the titles and the supporting documents. But you can also gift the property when you're alive. It reduces the cost that the persons have to pay when you actually give them. You can say, Pam will get the house, Ken will get the apartment, so you can gift it when you're alive. You can say, okay, this house is yours. When I die, I will put it in your name. I will put it over in your name. But the clause is, they draw it up, the clause and the contract, so that it says that you cannot get it until I am no longer here on this side of Jordan. Write down your bank accounts. Where are your bank accounts? Where are your investments? Where are your insurance? What branches are they? What banks are they? Make sure they have up-to-date beneficiaries on it, Gather all the supporting documents and put them together. Medically, brothers and sisters, outline what are your medical conditions and what you need to do to manage them. Who are the practitioners that have your medical history? This one know that me have a heart attack when me was 20. So they know that me have a pacemaker in when me was 50. So this one have the information. This one have the x-ray on my foot. When my sciatica nerve did start act up, I could have hardly walk. And when the osteoarthritis start moving on my fingers and my can't, this one have it. Have a medical calendar, When are you scheduled to do your visits and what is to be done when you go for those visits? Put away money for medical expenses. Medical expenses are very expensive. Remember I was telling you? The person told me to take out the cancer insurance. And I'm like, why this person telling me I'm 20, I don't know nobody. But brothers and sisters, when I had breast cancer, that plan came in very handy. It helped me to pay for a lot of things, even some debt that I had. You understand? So put away monies for that. Take out what we call a family indemnity plan, a FIP. Kuna Mutual Caribbean has something like that. And there might be other places that have. And they have something called a family indemnity critical care, critical illness rider. What is a family indemnity plan? It's a plan, it's like an insurance that you put persons up to age 75, children up to 1 to 25, and for the critical illness part up to 59. And it's an insurance and you pay it monthly. But if something, God forbid, something happens to your loved one within 3 days, within a few days, I think it was, I remember when I had to access it, about 3 days after, I was able to get my money because all my things were up to date, and I was able to get my money and use it to help to bury my loved one. Okay? So that's the family indemnity plan. If you're facing terminal illness, make sure you have access to medical and financial benefits. What you're going to do? What does your insurance cover? What does this cover? Take it out early so that you can qualify. Because I remember when I took out a critical illness, I took it out, brothers and sisters, and I kid you not, by the time I reached 6 months, or I think when I was by the 8th month, I needed it. And I was able to get the full benefit because I had qualified after 6 months. If I had gotten before that 6 months, I wouldn't have qualified. So take it out early so that you can qualify. You're already qualified. So by the time you're ready to need it. If you can, take out supplementary health insurance and critical illness to pay for treatment. Do your screenings, brothers and sisters. Do your medical screening, things like mammograms. As early detection save life. It saved mine. That's why I can hear talking to you tonight, because the mama, God used the mammogram. I didn't even, the day I was to do that mammogram, I wasn't going to do it again. And as clear as I'm talking to you, I hear God said to me, you better go. And I'm like, what you telling me that God like say something happened to me? But something did happen to me, but me never know, but God didn't know. So go and do your screening. Don't let fear cripple you. And as a church, how do we prepare as a church? So we've been talking individually, how we prepare. As a church, there is something called a church insurance plan. And you can have your members registered. So there's one like at Sagicor called Church Made Plus. It is for church members age 18 to 70. It's life insurance from 500,000 up to 2 million, critical illness, personal accident, and office and hospital indemnity. So, and you might have another insurance, but you can also take this one out too. And it will help. Our members of the thrift, that, Bethel Baptist Church has a thrift. Are members of that thrift society? Do you have members who are in the funeral home business? They might have members who are there and that's their profession. What kind of arrangements you can make with them beforehand to help members who are unable to take care of their expenses? Do you need to have a little plan where you can help them pay down beforehand so that when that time comes, or somebody who can make the wreath, and their wreath is not as expensive as this, or this one can make the coffin is not as expensive as this, that kind of thing. I know we don't like to talk about it, but it's something that we have to do. There are resources as a church that you can access. And one of the things I saw was that NHF has a scholarship program, so that let's say you want to have a kind of community outreach down at East Queen Street there, a community health, you can get a scholarship from NHF. You just have to apply and see whether or not you qualify and you're eligible. You can have a retirement fair, but not just targeted for persons who are about to retire, but for the young and the old. Because if I knew, brothers and sisters, if I had some of this information when I had just started out, some of the problems that I am having in my life now, I think I wouldn't have them. God did give me the wisdom, but I just never use it. So now I hope it will help you. Have a retirement fair for the community. Bring people like NIS, NHT, the Passport and Immigration and Citizenship Agency, a financial company, a credit union, a bank, somebody, some medical professions, and some lawyers, some lawyers that can probably help people write their last will and testament. Have what you can also have as a church is what I call a verified practical nursing caregiver list. Inevitably you find that people, when they get older, they want a care. You know, a caregiver that could come in for one day this week and stay with my mother, or this relief person because I can't do it alone. But you want people who you can trust, who not going to tear down the people in them house or just sit down and look pretty and don't take care of them. You want people who actually take care of the persons. So you could have that list. You could have a East Queen Street list so people know that they can come to your church, and that is done. So in summary, what I have been saying, I think I've been talking for long and it's time for questions. So prepare a retirement purpose plan. Prepare a physical plan to take care of your body, mind, and spirit. Have all your documents in order. Prepare an emotional plan to cope with all the mental changes that you'll face. Prepare a financial, see, I forgot to type that one in. Prepare a financial plan to cover all your expenses. Prepare a medical plan that will cover all the areas. And as a church, help your members prepare for retirement in all ways possible. Thank you, brothers and sisters. I hope this was helpful. Brother Brown, back to you.